Instructions for your personal advising philosophy. I hope this doesn't end up being too long. If it does, you don't have to watch it. I'm also going to post this Google slide, which you can view on your own. So this slideshow and video is going to walk you through the steps to create your personal advising philosophy, give you some ideas on where to start, and give you some examples. And again, this slideshow will also be available for your reference, so you don't have to watch this whole video all over again to get these slides. So I've gotten a lot of this information from this reference if you want to go to that, but you don't have to because I gathered it all up for you. So the reason we're doing a personal advising philosophy is because we have looked at all of these things: historical, legal, ethical, theoretical, and a personal advising philosophy takes all of those things and puts them in one pithy synthesis of information that is accessible to your student clients, and forces you to go through that information and pick out what matters to you and how the information affects your practice. So what's due is you have two parts. On October 27th, you're going to submit your personal advising philosophy, and I know not all of you are in roles where you advise, and I'll address that. On November 10th, you will submit your professional development plan. I'll give you additional instructions on that, but basically that is things you can do to be a lifelong learner, things that you will continue to develop, skills, dispositions, competencies, and how you're going to develop those. You'll identify areas of growth and decide how you will continue to grow those. So I'll give you more information on that. That's due November 10th. And some of that's going to come out as you develop your personal advising philosophy. You'll realize, I want to be this way. My ideal version of my academic advising philosophy is this, but how do I get to that ideal version? So part 2, will help you develop that vision. So what is a personal advising philosophy? I'm going to encourage you later to Google, which is highly scholarly, right? Some personal advising philosophies, because there are a lot out there. And we're going to look for these 6 components. And this author, I'm not sure if it's Freitag or Freitag, is cited a lot here. He's an advisor, and it'll send you to this article here. He's published in other places as well, so he's a scholar practitioner. And your advising philosophy that you create, your academic advising philosophy, should have these 6 elements. That does not mean that I want you to make a header for each of these elements. Instead, it's best that you create a document that reflects these 6 elements. And how it reflects these 6 elements is up to you. So we'll look at some examples, and I'll show you what that would look like in an assignment. So it'll have a positive self-motivated statement. It'll state the goals of advising, provide structure and clarity to advising sessions. This is missing in a lot of personal advising philosophies, what an advising session looks like. A description of the approaches that you take to advising, the student development and advising theory that you use in your sessions, and then it should reflect some sort of commitment to lifelong learning and how you will continue to develop as an advisor. So the next few slides I'll guide you through. These will guide you through some activities you can use to start to think about your personal advising philosophy, and questions you can use if you want to. This is nothing you have to turn in. So I would encourage you to reflect on these 3 questions: the purpose of advising, 3 words students would use to describe your advising style, and that might be you reflecting on a future student and how you would want them to describe your advising style, and what you think your greatest strength as an advisor is, or what you would want your greatest strength as an advisor to be. Then the next series of slides is going to walk you through a pre-writing activity for your personal advising philosophy. And you may have to think of this as if you're currently working with students, even if you're not a professional advisor, think about how you interact with students in your current job. If you are an advisor, you could think of the advisor you want to become, like in 2 or 3 years. And even in all of those situations, you can think about how will you want to be in several years as an experienced advisor who's leading or mentoring other professional advisors. So you kind of have 3 horizons. As you're completing these pre-writing questions, there's just 3 questions. You can answer them as your current self, as your future self in just 2 or 3 years, and as your future self in like 5 or 10 years. So the 3 questions are just, and don't think too much about this, even though I over-explained it. Maybe just like 3 or 4 minutes for each of these questions. So why am I an academic advisor? How do I make a difference in the lives of students and colleagues? And how do my students know their lives matter? Once you reflect on the answers to these 3 questions in your current short-term future self and long-term future self, that is going to help you answer these 3 questions in the 6 elements that should be present in your advising philosophy. Why am I an academic advisor will help you speak to this positive, self-motivated statement. How do I make a difference is going to help you speak to the description of approaches you take to advising. And how do my students know their lives matter is going to help you speak to your student development and advising theory. And then those earlier questions, those warm-up questions, will help you speak to your advising goals and the structure and clarity of advising sessions. So that's something you'll need to go back to, think through. So let's take a look at some of examples. So this first one, this is Freitag. I'm probably saying his name wrong. I apologize. So this one does have all 6 of those elements. I'm going to go back to those 6 elements. Sorry. So in the first part, we have, as an academic advisor, my primary mission is to help students navigate successfully through their academic careers while exploring their educational and career goal options. So here we have their positive, motivated statement while also speaking to the goals of an advising session. It's an educational experience, so I'm seeing some of this structure and clarity to advising sessions. I seek to enable my office to be a comfortable environment, conducive to relaxation, encouragement of candid conversation. That's speaking to this here, structure and clarity to advising sessions. Informational components, relational components, so it's speaking to the description of approaches, and the conceptual components as well. Bringing the 3 components together of academic advising after the informational needs. So skimming through here, it's also speaking to the theories, student development and advising theory. So he's synthesizing these here and citing them, and has cited them throughout. And telling us why it's important. By studying student development theories, I'm able to maintain a toolbox of ideas. So he cited a few different development theories and advising theories. I'm skimming, sorry. Curiosity about advising and participating in research projects. So just by skimming through this, I'm seeing that he's hitting all of these. And at the end, when he's talking about writing about participating in research projects and learning more, I get a sense that this is a living document because it's a commitment to lifelong learning. So just on an initial skim, I see that he has hit all 6 of these. I can count. All 6 of these components without having a header for all of those. So in this slide, I've asked you to look at several advising philosophies, and you'll see I didn't read that too closely, because if I'm going to read that too closely, I'm going to start to want to replicate that. So when I was reading through that, I was looking for structure, style, and content with attention to those 6 elements. So I looked at a few others. This was an example from an advisor at Texas A&M. And when you look through this, you'll see most of those 6 elements. I believe this is the one I looked at that was missing the structure of the advising appointment. What I did appreciate about this structure is there are headers that guides me through the document, and I appreciated the parallelism here that points me to this advisor's values. But if I were reading through this, I would read through and look for those 6 things: the developmental theory, advising theory, a positive statement about her commitment, which is infused throughout the document in those commitment statements, her responsibilities here. So this one's pretty good, but I won't bore you with my read aloud there, but I think that one was missing the walkthrough of the advising session. In the previous one I showed you in Freitag or Freitag's one, you can see he doesn't walk a student through step by step what happens in an advising appointment, but he does mention it. So in these personal advising philosophies, these aren't step-by-step guides for students or for people that are seeking information about advising. They're more general statements that get to the heart of what your advising philosophy is. So all of that was very theoretical and very fast. If we want to get to brass tacks, it's like, what am I supposed to do, Dr. Breen? Your advising philosophy needs to have those 6 elements that were on slide 4. Again, that doesn't mean you need to have a header for each one of those things. It can be infused throughout the document. The philosophy that you create needs to be something that you would share on your professional website, in application materials. It needs to be something that really reflects who you are or who you strive to be as a professional advisor. So knowing that, let that be your guide for length, verbiage, language, syntax, etc. It needs to be accessible for the audience you expect to read it, which would be probably the students that you're serving. So as you're looking through examples, professional examples from other advisors on the internet, you're looking for content and style and structure, as well as the language that you're using. All of the documents that I've looked at are very accessible, but this is also for a grade. And the audience that you are creating these for, because you will use these in your professional career, are also future employers, your supervisors, the professional community, and they will want to see that the document they create is reflects best practice. So you want it to have pithy citations. By that I mean you don't at the end of a sentence want to have a string of citations that then distracts your student readers from continuing to read. So when you pick out a citation, it needs to be the one that's most important, and the one that really speaks to the theory that you're referring to. So, and for an example of what I'm talking about there, Freitag's was good about that. Picking out the citation that is needed for that. Okay, I think that's a very long video to get to the point that these are due October 27th. I've given you purposefully vague instructions because I want you to create a document that reflects something that you would use. I don't want them to all necessarily look a certain way. I will look for those 6 elements, but they don't need to be under headers. And I kind of walked you through reading this one that's up right now. I'll be able to pick those things out. If you're speaking to developmental or advising philosophy, if you have a motivational statement, if you're speaking to the advising goals, I'll be able to see those in there. And then if you'll look at this one, he has his references at the bottom. So when you've made your citations, they should be there. If you have questions, I know this is a different kind of assignment. I'm happy to look at a draft and let you know if you're on the right track, give you some validation and a go forth and write before you submit it. Otherwise, I'll post all this up and put the Dropbox up, and then you'll be getting more information about the part 2. Take care.